Because of Rochester's history, do you almost feel like you have to defend the decision that probably in the golf world is looked at as a big positive for your tour?
Yeah, you know, it wasn't the thing that I think got out of whack is people thought we had this choice. Do we go to New York City and we stay in Rochester? At the end of the day, we knew that this era was ending, and we had time to figure out the next plan. So nobody was running away from Rochester. In fact, in my 5 years, I've sat across from media rooms like this and said, "Are you coming back to Toledo? Are you coming back to Hawaii? Are you coming back to San Diego? Are you coming back to Arizona?" And we're back in all those markets. So I think when there's a will, there's a way. And I mean, a lot of people said we'd never go back to Phoenix, and we'd be back in Phoenix for 4 years. So this was the right thing to do for the championship because we had to find the next place. But are we done with Rochester? I sure hope not.
You mentioned up there about coming back potentially. Can you just elaborate that?
Well, I mean, to me, this reminds me a little bit of Phoenix or Toledo or Hawaii, where you say, you know, there's a demand, there's an interest. Players love it. They've stayed with families. The golf courses are unbelievable, but tournaments take money. You know, they take title sponsorship. So that's the ball's in our court to find the next hero. I've called, you know, around the world, I've called Wegmans the corporate hero for Rochester. We just need to find the next corporate hero that can deliver what these guys have done for the last few decades. You know, it's pretty rare to find a sponsor who's been with you 3 decades, and I'd like to find the next one just with us for the next 5 or 6 years, and let's start a new tradition.
Can you work with Wegmans again and get them back here, the tournament back here in some form or shape?
You know, it's probably a better question for them, but one thing I know about Wegmans is they believe in continual improvement, and I think going back to a regular event probably wasn't in their mode. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago when they said we want to deliver major to the city of Rochester, that's exactly what they did. And then a couple of years ago when we started talking about the wind down years, they gave me ample time to make the right decision. So the good news is the championship didn't find itself in a what's going to happen to the LPGA Championship. We had time to figure that out, and hopefully now we'll have time to figure out who can get us back to Rochester on a regular basis.
Did you know about going down to New York City, both on your part and the women's part? Certainly worry that being in major media markets, let's face it, women's golf is not up with football, baseball, hockey in a town like New York. Are they going to get lost? We hear they were kind of really, queens of the roots, so to speak.
Yeah, you know, I think there's some truth to the fact that we've done really good at second or third tier markets, and I think we always will. That doesn't mean we don't succeed in markets. I mean, we played big events in LA and Chicago, and I think this is a really important one because this tournament, this KPMG Women's PGA Championship, is really tied into a leadership women's summit that's going to happen on Wednesday. And we really thought being as close to New York City as possible is going to bring some of the best female business minds in the world. We want this tournament to be as much about what goes on for women outside the ropes as it does inside the ropes. It won't stay in New York City every year, so it's kind of more of a rotating thing. I think if we told me we were going to live in one spot, forever, would I worry about that? Maybe a little bit, but knowing that it's going to be moving venues, that's much less of a concern.
Anything you're going to say maybe for Locust Hill for all those years the tournament was there, and I know you came in towards the end of that, but the fact that it almost seems a little odd that it's ending in 1 year here at another place, but all those years at a private club is almost unheard of in any tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people think how glamorous it must be to host an event at your club, but ask a Locust Hill member, and they'll probably say a lot of the glamour wasn't as exciting as you think. I mean, we can't play a couple of weeks, and the rough is 8 inches high, which I'm sure is not a lot of fun. Didn't fun for anybody going through a major. But those people have been phenomenal. I would just say in the world of hosts, we just haven't had hosts like that before. I mean, I think it's neat that we're going to end in Rochester in a whole new look. I think for the fans, it's going to be a whole new look and experience for the players. I mean, there's an anxiety and an antsiness because players who have played it. We're talking about players who haven't heard it, so it gets kind of a build-up. But we're never going to forget Locust Hill. And like I said, I mean, I think it's strange. It would be strange for me to say we're not going to be back in Rochester long term because I've seen it happen on the LPGA just in my 5 years. How many homecomings, how many markets we're back in that we had left before.
How much has Rochester played a role in the tour and the tournament, this specific tournament, getting to the point that it's about to get to now after this year, and in terms of its growth and its popularity?
Yeah, I would say that every market that we're in has an impact on the tournament. There's the local flavor and staying with the people, but I think Rochester's just become part of our fabric. I mean, what makes Rochester unique is whether I'm talking to Nancy Lopez, whether I'm talking to Paula Creamer, or I'm talking to somebody on the Symetra Tour, they can all relate to Rochester because it's a destination that either they've played if Nancy or a Symetra Tour player is hoping to make it to. And the men's golf have a lot of venues where they've been 35, 40 years. In women's case, there's not as many like that, where young girls at 8 grew up watching it, girls that are 28 watch girls that were 48 playing it, and Rochester is one of those for us, where people that have the dream as a young kid. We don't have many markets like that, which makes us so interesting and interesting for us to say, how do we find a way back?
You saw this coming for a while now. As the point came where you're going to announce that this event was going to leave Rochester with no replacement in the foreseeable future, how anxious were you to make that public, not only for the fans here, but for your players?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. My anxious moments probably happened a year and a half or so ago when we started talking about this, when I realized that I had to figure out Plan B and had time to do it. So actually making the announcement was almost a relief, because sitting on the news was problematic for me. Like, I didn't want somebody to hear it from somebody else, or, you know, not out of my mouth. In fact, I'm the one who called these guys and said, how about if I replace Indy Park at the press conference? I'd rather be there and talk about Rochester than you know, have somebody, you know, call me on the phone when I'm driving to work. So yeah, it's tough to know. Like I said, I have the same feeling here that I had about Toledo, or that I had about Hawaii, or that I had about Phoenix, which is, you know, this is where we belong. It's a good place for us to be. It's part of who we've been in all these years. So if we can find a way back, it'll be a great homecoming. I do think and I hope that this will make 2014 even more special, because I think sometimes, myself included, we almost took it for granted that we'd be in Rochester every year, and I know players had too. I mean, even some of my board members said the same thing. And I think you'll see more people from the LPGA staff at this event than ever before, because they'll realize that you just can't take it for granted that you're going to be in a market decade after decade.
If you'd like to have the tournament back, what are some of the, I mean, I probably know the biggest challenge is money, but you know, what are the biggest challenges, and how realistic is it that you'll get tournament back at some point?
Yeah, I mean, we could come up with a lot of bullet points, but the bottom line is, you know, LPGA events cost money. You're talking about, you know, hosting an event on a site. You're talking about purses. You're talking about significant operations, and you're talking about TV costs. As you guys know, with, you know, your cameras, this stuff's not free. So it's I always tell people that in the LPGA, maybe this is different than other sports, but I don't play where Mike Whan wants to play. I play where the title sponsor needs us for the business. So you know, somebody asked me the other day at KPM, you know, during the KPMG thing, you know, why aren't you guys playing? I forget what market they asked, and I said, I didn't choose New York City. KPMG chooses New York City. I don't choose Toledo. Marathon Oil Petroleum chooses Toledo. I didn't choose, you know, I don't choose Carlsbad. Kia chooses Carlsbad. So we need to be a great business partner, and that's what makes tournaments last 30-something years. So we need to find somebody who says Rochester's important to us, so that we can make it important to them.
Great. Thanks, Mike.